Welcome back, and thank you for joining us for the lessons learned within a distributed workforce, executing WAPA's mission during COVID. This will be presented by Tiffany DeFore and Jennifer Neville. For the past 7 years, Tiffany DeFore has had the honor to serve as WAPA's Emergency Management Program Manager. In this position, she directs and executes WAPA's emergency management programs across its 15-state service territory. The programs she oversees include occupant emergency, continuity of operations, and incident response. Tiffany also leads WAPA's efforts in implementation, processes, procedures, and requirements. Throughout her time serving as the Emergency Management Program Manager, she has supported many emergencies, including the 2017 power restoration effort in the U.S. Virgin Islands and WAPA's COVID-19 response. Tiffany has served as the Deputy MRC Manager since the beginning of the COVID response. Jennifer Neville is constantly curious about the world around her and the talented people at WAPA. Using project management, facilitation, and storytelling, she helps programs and projects connect customers, employees, and the public with the valuable services WAPA provides. She is a personal coach, building confidence in the path forward through clarity and kindness. Jen has supported emergency management efforts, including leading WAPA's communication in 2017 as the Public Information Officer for the emergency response to the U.S. Virgin Islands following the devastations of Hurricanes Irma and Maria, leading WAPA's COVID-19 reconstitution team and effort to support a safe and responsible return to the workplace. She is a certified project management professional for a decade, a certified change management trainer, and she has a green belt in Lean Six Sigma. Again, welcome, and I'd like to turn this virtual stage over to Tiffany and Jen.
Hey from Colorado, I'm Jen Neville, and I'm a management analyst, also known as a chaos coordinator and process improver. And during COVID, I was tapped to lead the planning effort for reconstitution.
Thanks, Jen. Hi, everyone. This is Tiffany DeFore, WAPA's Emergency Management Program Manager. I want to thank you all for the opportunity to share our experiences. In my position, I have oversight of all WAPA's emergency management programs. In addition, I am WAPA's voice on WAPA's alert system, the go-to person for WAPA's emergency response efforts. So along with Jen, I am also a chaos coordinator. I also serve as advisor, coach, handholder, counselor, and closer, as in I write the LLs and AARs for our emergency response efforts.
Thanks, Tiffany. I'm glad that we get to team up today to talk about this. Lessons learned from a distributed workforce. To get us started, let's share just a little bit of context about who WAPA is and what we do. So for folks who may not know WAPA, we are a unique federal agency within the Department of Energy. Our employees are guided by our mission to market and deliver clean hydro power at a cost-based rate. Our vision is to be a premier power marketing transmission organization. And we were really created in like 1977 when DOE was formed. Oil prices were climbing, the federal government was struggling to find ways to meet the nation's energy appetite. And one alternative energy source that was already available, hydropower, was there. And so with the birth of DOE, our responsibility to market and transmit hydropower was passed from reclamation to WAPA. And as a result, we were formed with our unique characteristic as a federal entity underneath DOE. Today, we have more than 700 customers. Those are utilities, co-ops, municipalities in the local areas, and they in turn serve 40 million Americans across the West. So the power that WAPA transmits comes from a variety of our service areas and the dams on rivers across central and western US. To manage the bulk electric system, WAPA has 4 regions and more than 50 staffed facilities across our 15-state footprint. In the 21st century, WAPA has a vital role in marketing and delivering low-cost, reliable federal hydropower as it ultimately reaches the homes and businesses that we all participate in. WAPA manages 5 control centers that balance load and resources within specific geographic areas. Our power system operators work around the clock in these locations to deliver power to where it's needed and when it's needed. We also play a vital role because we operate competitively in the energy industry. We'll continue to focus on reliability and customer service to help our customers keep the lights on throughout the West. And we've got to maintain our more than 17,000 miles of transmission line with our maintenance staff that are out in the field. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a very proud mission here at WAPA. By law, our goal is to market power in such a way as to encourage the most widespread use of the lowest possible rates to consumers consistent with sound business principles. Our strong mission provides our guiding post to deliver our services to customers and communities. And it also helps us perform DOE's MEF10 that specifically covers delivering electric power in a safe and reliable manner. Tiffany, with all of that background about who WAPA is, can you share a little bit about how we apply pandemic preparedness?
Yes, thanks, Jen. So WAPA's All Hazard Emergency Management Program is actually fairly young. It was stood up in 2014, and much of the development and implementation has taken place within the last 6 years, just before the pandemic hit. So asking the question, were we ready for the pandemic? That's kind of a yes and no answer. We had plans in place. We have documents centrally located for quick retrieval. Many of our resources have already been identified, networks in place, and emergency response employees identified. In fact, if you look at WAPA as a whole, daily emergency response is our business, specifically in power operations where they deal with energy demands and emergencies every day. Because of this, it has been fairly easy to leverage what we already have in place, but this is the first time we've ever dealt with a pandemic, and we have never exercised this hazard. So we're learning, we've had to learn many lessons along the way, and we've been figuring it out as we go. So let's start with the pandemic, or the beginning of the pandemic for WAPA. WAPA originally developed its pandemic plan during the Ebola scare in late 2014, early 2015 timeframe. As we were wrapping up standardizing our COOP plans in 2017-2018 timeframe across our organization, we also revamped and rebranded the pandemic plan in 2019 to serve as a supporting document to our COOP plans. We then revised the plan right before the pandemic in January of 2020. In addition, part of our overall resource need identified through exercises and building out our emergency program was to ensure that we had adequately trained staff to respond to any type of an emergency. Over the past several years, we've responded to natural disasters that either affected WAPA directly or required our support. And from those lessons learned, we identified the need for more emergency trained personnel. So in the fall of 2019, we had a massive in-house NIMS ICS initiative that brought WAPA to about 85% of the identified personnel trained in incident response and serving in EOCs.
And that's how you got me, Tiffany. I got a chance to take some of that training back then.
That's right. Jen, you were trained up too, and now you are supporting the Rocky Mountain Region's Office EOC. So perfect example of just-in-time training for WAPA. We were also planning DERG exercises for FY20, but due to COVID, the exercise was replaced with the real-world event. So the real-world event, when we received the guidance from DOE to move to maximum telework, were we prepared? In many ways, yes. we were well ahead of it all because we actually stood up a level 3 EOC in January 2020 to monitor the effects of the virus that the virus was having on the US. And then in late February, we moved to a level 2 EOC because the pandemic began to affect our service territory, specifically in California. So when DOE followed OMB direction to move to maximum telework, we were ready for level 1 EOC and prepared our regional offices to also stand up EOCs to manage the pandemic issues locally. So once the regional EOCs were activated, we moved WAPA, the WAPA-wide EOC, to what we called a multi-regional coordination group instead of a multi-area coordination group. This is a perfect example of how flexible NIMS is because we adapted it to our needs. The MRC provided support to the local EOCs, those regional EOCs, and they also developed WAPA-wide guidance and policies. The MRC also serves as the conduit to DOE. So with our MRC stood up, WAPA has a continuity of operations plan for each of our regional offices. So it made sense to set up those EOCs in each of the regions because of the vast geographical differences across our territory. The one thing that remains the same across the organization is our workforce functions. But the issue is how distributed these essential positions are and how to ensure the safety of our on-site workforce while still completing our mission essential functions. In addition, we must ensure the neutral functions were still able to complete daily tasks from a maximum telework posture. So this experience for us was unprecedented as we were closing all our facilities at the same time. We had to ensure our facility and field-based staff were still able to safely do their jobs. And with 46 of our 50 plus staffed sites supporting maintenance work and 24/7 operations, along with more unstaffed facilities, we had to quickly lay out plans to support the different guidance and direction. At the same time, we had to provide guidance and direction for maximum telework staff for that facility neutral category. As the pandemic wears on, we were able to articulate these three groups because just saying mission essential, folks staying on site didn't really cut it. Because, for example, I'm actually categorized as a mission essential function and Jen isn't, but we were both still put in maximum telework. So we had to dig a bit deeper to truly categorize our workforce into these distributed buckets to determine telework capable and not capable. So as we're moving through this presentation, keep this in mind as Jen talks us through our reconstitution efforts.
Yeah, thanks, Tiffany, for providing those insights and structure on how we started in those early days and how we've kind of developed in managing the pandemic even today. Today, I'm asking us to just take a look back at reentry. Today we are seeing that there's reentry is going in a different direction. But for a moment, I want us to take a step back and look through the lens of 2020. In late spring 2020, we received guidance to start working toward reconstitution and bringing the workforce back to our facilities. So in just 7 weeks, our reconstitution team coordinated an aligned strategic plan with DOE that provided clear expectations and directions for safety for our entire workforce. We needed a systematic way to provide oversight while also delegating down the decision-making to the local level for each facility. And to support our regional EOCs that Tiffany was talking about earlier in doing that local level evaluation, we developed several tools, we provided training, and to support both facility planning for folks at each one of those facilities that matches their unique facility structure, facility type, as well as what was happening in the local area in the county, as well as tracking supplies. But all of this started with matching federal guidance with WAPA's core values and developing some key principles to navigate reentry. While all of this happened and we were able to accomplish so much in just 7 weeks, what it really came down to was starting with our core values and who our culture is at WAPA so that we could build our principles based on that. So to start with, we have do what's right, do what's safe. And from that core value at WAPA, we really focused on people. We focused on the health of our employees and providing a safe work environment and having that guidance that we were going to follow local health officials as well as any mandates or orders from the state and federal government. The second core principle that we worked on was serve like your lights depend on it, which really reflects our mission and our value that we bring to customers and to the United States citizens. So to do that, we focused on the mission essential function that Tiffany was talking about earlier. How do we maintain support of the energy needs of our customers and communities while also taking those precautions and safety measures for our employees? And then thirdly, we focused on the core value of respect self, others, and the environment. And this is really our call to our culture of looking at each other and respecting each other and taking each other into consideration as we're moving forward. So our key principle here is really to focus on the fact that we are a professional workforce and that we rely on doing what is right, doing what is safe, and respecting each other. So through the pandemic, as we were working towards reentry, we took those core principles and aligned with our core values and with DOE's guidance, and we looked at, okay, how are we going to maintain flexibility as we go through this? So we came up with our motto, operate, incorporate, and adjust. This was a paradigm shift that gives us an opportunity to look at how do we continue serving that mission, create safe work environments, but be agile as things adjust. Tiffany, this makes me think there is a term for this, right? In the COOP world?
Yeah, Jen, thanks. You're right on track there. And all of you should be familiar with the Federal Mission Resiliency Strategy paradigm. The shift that we went from that went into effect in December 2020, in which we moved from activate, relocate, and operate in our COOP stance to sustain, assess, and distribute that model. Although different terminology, the processes are similar in many ways. So when you compare sustain to our operate, that's direction of performance. And you compare the assess to incorporate, that's the review and prioritizing. And then distribute and adjust, they're a little bit different, but it's still diversifying elements. And in our case, for our motto, adjust to fit the operational needs. So you can see the similarities and the correlation there.
I think that was really strategic, not just from the COOP planning perspective, but from WAPA's standpoint in incorporating that and helping enable our staff who are both working in COOP, those EOCs, as well as our entire body to let them know, look, we are operating, we are incorporating as we go, and we're making sure that we're staying flexible enough to adjust so that we can keep moving forward. So let me show you a little bit what that looks like at the local level. We talked about, having oversight over all of our 50 facilities, staffed facilities, but also then delegating that decision level making to the local level. To do that, we provided them with a dashboard that tracked the county cases at their local level so that the external factors they could track what the caseload looks like in their area, or now what we call the transmission level looks like in their area. They could track ICU beds and how the local hospital was responding to the area. And they could track the mandates and orders from the local county, the state, and the federal government all at the same time. We even set up a precedent for which one supersedes the other. And then internally, if you guys remember those early days, who remembers, no toilet paper in 2020? Well, in those early days, we did have some supply chain issues. So we really set up some strategic monitoring of those internal conditions down to the local level, whether it was the folks maintaining our lines out in the field that needed cleaning supplies for their vehicles, or whether it was those operators that Tiffany was talking about that are tracking 24/7 and making sure that they had cleaning supplies for those facilities that were operating 24/7. We had to make sure that we had cleaning supplies, air filtration addressed at all of our facilities, and that the setup was really clear for where different stations were, social distancing, if we needed plexiglass in certain places, and signage for them to use that. So that just gives you a picture into how we designed the system to involve those who were closest to the facility, but also at the same time provide that clear guidance and direction that is consistent across the organization. And we learned a lot from it, didn't we, Tiffany?
Sorry, had to get off mute. Yes, absolutely. So moving into what we have learned so far. See if I can, there we go. Some lessons learned we have identified include the need for more guidance that went well beyond our pandemic response plans. And I'm sure a lot of you can associate with this. Things including home to work protocol that some of you may be familiar with. We have field crews that were no longer able to go to the office or a facility to pick up their work vehicles to drive to job sites. So we had to make sure we had a policy in place that allowed for them to take their vehicles home and go directly to the job sites. In addition to that, we had to develop freedom of movement packets for those same crews in the event of local lockdowns. We did have some counties that were on complete lockdown, and so these freedom of movement packets really helped through that. And then all of us are familiar with remote work. We've never had an entire office move to maximum telework. And so there was a lot that had to go into that, including IT equipment loan and tracking, because many employees needed more than just a laptop to complete their work of their everyday tasks from a telework stance. Also, facility cleaning and disinfecting. Many of us have had to add additional tools and procedures to ensure the safety of those employees that had to stay on site. And also for us, we had to do some sequestration planning, logistics, and identify pay changes. For our power system operations, we do test moving to alternate control centers several times a year because we have to meet NERC requirements. But we have truly never tested keeping those employees on site for a long period of time.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Tiffany, because I remember when we did do that test for sequestration, one of the things we really had to think about was, sure, we have the mechanisms in place to pull all of that together, but we really wanted to make sure that we did the human check too, to ensure that the mental health of our employees in this new environment where they're having to lock down, being separated from their family, being separated from other social dynamics, how to do that well. And so it was a interesting way to test that. And even through that test, there were some lessons that we picked up that are still unresolved. We haven't gotten through all of those yet.
That's right, Jen. We'll be moving forward with those as well. So a second high-level lesson learned for us was through it all, WAPA's main strength has proved to be resilience. It goes with the saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And we've had to navigate the unknown, including having to complete our mission essential functions while awaiting direction and guidance from our top government officials. We've had many teams working to ensure the safety of our employees while maintaining the reliability of the electric grid. We've also had to quickly change guidance and direction as policy changes. Many of us have felt this along the way as those changes came down the line. The impact of these challenges required multiple perspectives from our point of view here at WAPA. And so we quickly and efficiently set up many sub-teams to support the MRC as well as WAPA's direction and mission. This included a policy team to ensure applicable WAPA laws and regulations were followed with those changes. We stood up a screening, testing, and PPE team to monitor and develop screening, testing, and PPE guidance. We set up the reentry team that Jen led to develop WAPA's reconstitution plan specific for this pandemic. We have a reconstitution plan, but it didn't truly address how we would reenter with pandemic. Also, we had a contact tracing team that continually keeps track of WAPA's on-site active COVID cases to ensure that we protect those employees that have to stay on-site to complete the mission. In addition, we have an EOC planning team. So all of our regional EOCs planning section chiefs come together to collaborate and provide standard practices and situational awareness across WAPA. We also have a procurement team in place to ensure that we have the supplies needed to protect and support that on-site workforce as well. In addition, we've formed informal lines of communications. For example, we stood up a power agencies that includes the PMAs and TVA, situational awareness group, and also a recovery task force that we're meeting weekly in the beginning to collaborate, benchmark, and share best practices to help each other through the pandemic. The recovery task force team still meets bi-weekly, and we share updates, products, and documents. It's a great team to have, and we thank those that have joined that team.
So Tiffany, you just mentioned a whole bunch of different teams. You know, of course, I was a part of a couple of those teams, but you know, what do you think was the key when you talk about emergency management skills and our focus on resilience? What did you think was the key to all of those teams coming together and being resilient or creating that resilience?
That's a great question, Jen. My opinion is communication. Communication was key through all of this. Our regional EOCs keep their ears to the ground and share whatever information comes up that they learn or know. And we have many cross-functional teams that really power the resilience of our agency.
Well, you know what they say, many hands, light work.
Absolutely. So let's move on to some positive takeaways. Some things that we've really taken away from this effort is part of maintaining the grid stability while addressing emergency response. In the beginning, we actually exercised telework right before we went into maximum telework because in our Sierra Nevada region out in California, they were the first to really start seeing the effects of the pandemic impacting their communities, and concerns rose regarding work conditions there. So on March 13th, that was a Friday, they exercised maximum telework and sent everybody except for the power system operators home. The exercise really gave WAPA's IT department a week's lead time to address connectivity issues. So we were actually pretty well prepared when we went to maximum telework. In addition, addressing emergency needs, our 4 power operation centers brought in campers early on in the pandemic during the summer months to prepare for possible sequestration of keeping those folks on site. Since we had those campers on site, we decided to go ahead and exercise that. So we had staff exercising for 2 weeks in the April-May timeframe. And through this exercise, we identified additional needs and processes such as campers are really good for summertime use, but what happens when fall and winter hit? You really can't use those because of the freezing pipe concern. So we actually set up with the empty offices now, we set up cots and logistics and had stuff on site for staff in case we had to sequester through the fall winter timeframe. And another item that really worked for us, a positive takeaway, was developing a common operating picture that we put out for every operational period to keep leaders and our employees informed And then going back to those informal lines of communications, we actually borrowed the format of our common operating picture from Bonneville Power Administration. And we continue to use it, and we've added additional situational awareness for the possibility of multi-emergency events, such as wildfires and the possibility of having to support hurricanes. Or, I'm sorry, hurricane disaster response. So although the pandemic isn't quite over, we can definitely see it on the horizon. And as we continue to adjust and incorporate our lessons learned as we go, we will continue taking the lessons we've learned and revise our plans for a better workforce. So this brings us to the final positive takeaway we have, which is flexibility. And that goes back to our motto, operate, incorporate, and adjust. To paraphrase General Patton's quote that we all use in the emergency realm often, a good plan today is better than a perfect plan next week. Thank you for this time to share our experiences with you.
Thank you for your presentation, Jennifer and Tiffany. I want to see how many people have asked some questions here in our chat box. And we'll start with, what have you tried that didn't work?
Well, we tried a couple things and not everything was a success. Initially, as people were taking their equipment home, we were looking to track property, and it wasn't easy to do that because you didn't have barcodes on everything. And so we developed a process to try and intermittently track what kinds of property folks were taking home. But it hasn't worked well, and we're still looking for a solution on that. And Tiffany, you know, I don't know if you remember the food and pay sequestration element that we were trying to get in place for our folks, but that might be another area where we tried and we just didn't see success.
Yeah, and I think fortunately that because we didn't have to go into sequestration through this so far, that it hasn't been that big of an issue, but our general counsel is working to focus on if a regional office had to sequester, that they would work with them individually with the food piece of it. But the pay thing is still kind of up in the air. And I know that the other PMAs have had the same issue because it is across all of the power marketing administrations.
Thank you all. Another question is, what DIRGE exercises are you planning to do this year?
Thanks, Verna. With DIRG exercises, because of the pandemic, we were planning to complete them last year, of course. But as we're moving into this more FMRS focus, I think our direction is going to change a little bit, and our devolution exercises will look more towards dispersed response, which through our presentation, you were able to see that WAPA is pretty dispersed already, and we have several of these mission essential functions already performing in a dispersed environment. So I think that's what we will focus on this year with our DIRG exercises.
Thank you. Jen, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I thought that was pretty well summed up.
Okay. You're getting some kudos here in the chat. Thank you, Steve McGuire, for saying what a great job you did. We have to agree on that. We have another question. Based on your lessons learned, what are you doing differently today than in 2020?
That's a really good one. I'll start, and Tiffany, I know you probably thought through this list too of things that could happen. Actually, Tiffany, why don't you start since I'm getting some background noise?
Okay, no problem. I can take this on. So one thing that we are doing differently with the rush of moving to a full remote work, telework for all our employees, and not having a lot of ability to tell them the whys and why fors, We are focusing more on employee issues and negotiations as we're moving forward and moving back into the possibility of reentry. Some other things that we're looking at is continuing that preparation in case once we get back into the facilities, if we have a virus breakout in the facilities, that's sequestration, making sure our power operations dispatchers are well prepared for that. And another thing that we did in the beginning was moving from quick implementation plans and implementing on the fly to now we have more time to allow us for planning and implementing and preparing the employees for a return. And then possibly once we return to go back to a telework stance if we do have a viral outbreak. So a little more time to plan for sure.
And I think the communication piece of that has been so pivotal, both before and now, even more so. We're learning that communication is really going to be the thing that we've got to focus on. Being able to give folks advance notice of here's the kind of communication you're going to get as a response to either a local situation or an outbreak, and where you can get that frequently asked questions, where you can get responses to that as well. So we're really focused on that as well.
And that communication goes along with Patty Billy's comment. She says, "Thank you. It was a very informative presentation. Keep EMI SIG informed to further lessons learned, hard issues that you overcame in real time." So very important that help us keep up with that. We always want to hear from you. We have just a little more time. This one is good. How do you define mission essentials?
Oh no, I think, okay, we do still have Jen. I thought we lost her. She was on spinning. Do you want to take that, Jen, or you want me to jump in there?
Sure, I'll take it. So we have mission essential function defined before we ever stepped into the pandemic. But what we recognize is that the definition we had, as Tiffany said in the presentation, just wasn't sufficient for what we were experiencing. So our definition now is that if it's those mission essential is now those functions that are required to operate, maintain, and repair the bulk electric system and have routine access to our facilities. These functions include maintenance, power system ops, energy management and marketing, emergency, like Tiffany and I are at home as we see, IT, and then any other aspects that are needed to be completed to complete the WAPA mission.
I would like to also add that we've added a second criteria, and this is kind of helping us with our phased reentry approach, if we get back to that anytime soon. But we've also added a critical business operations element. And these are task-based activities which are necessary for mission essential functions to be accomplished. And it's something that we're moving forward on, and that these critical business operations include our maintenance support, those that support our crews that are out in the field, regulatory compliance, helicopter pilots, physical and cybersecurity. We do have some cybersecurity on site, but they're not on site regularly. And of course, emergency management. We need to be on site a little bit more than what we are.
Wonderful. Looks like we've got just a little more time. You all up for one more question? Okay.
Sure can.
How has this changed your emergency management program?
That one's for me. I'll go ahead and take that one. So through this process, and I'm sure many of you out in the EM field have done the same, we have made many updates to our plans and guides. And as you saw through our presentation, we had many of those on the fly things that we had to develop, like the home to work protocol and freedom of movement packets, and being prepared to sequester our dispatchers. So there's a lot of updates that we're making to our plans and guides, and incorporating those new guides as well. And then also a reconstitution plan for pandemic specific. You know, we all have our reconstitution plans, but that's just to get us back into the facility. When you're looking at pandemic, that's quite a bit different. And so we'll be holding on to that new plan as well. And then another thing is to continue training our employees. Through the pandemic, we did find that our selection for EOC roles and responsibilities is pretty thin, and our management likes to keep those that have the most knowledge in the EOCs. So they've been there for quite a while. And so we want to get more people trained up and sharing in those roles.
Tiffany, I love that you mentioned that last one too, just as one of those folks that are out there in the regions. It is important for us to have folks that are trained up, multiple folks that are trained up, so that we can iterate and exchange and also handle things at a local level when we need to, because sometimes the changes or the impacts that happen at a local level, it doesn't affect everybody, but you have to have the right answers at the right time, and you have to have knowledgeable people in emergency management to be able to make that call.
Great answers. Thank you both again for your time and your expertise. For those of you that are watching and would like to share this with others, please know that it will be available in about 12 to 24 hours for a playback. And don't forget to fill out your survey forms. And also don't forget to go on the app and start voting for the best presentation, the top contractor of the year, best EMI6 subcommittee. We really would like to hear from all of you. Thank you, Tiffany and Jen. We appreciate all you're doing for us.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.